what we've done so far when we've done our work, the first thing we did, number one, is you set up your proportions and you write one shape on top. That's the first step. So if we have two shapes, you either have shape A on the top or you have shape B. And you can use the words big, small, left, right. That's fine. But somehow you want to make sure you know which shape is numbers are going on top. No, you got to write this down. Perfect. I just didn't see the pen moving. So I then make up my fractions and I'll put on all the sides. Now that might be two fractions. Maybe you're using three fractions. Maybe you're using four. It depends on your shape. It also depends on what you're trying to find and what numbers you have. Okay, so I would put down all of one shape on top. Now, what shape you put on down first is up to you. Who wants to put down shape A first? Who wants to put down shape B first? It doesn't matter. But if I choose shape B, I then put all the shape B numbers on the bottom. If I chose shape A, I would put all those numbers on the top. But you only do one of them. Okay. After you do one of them, say we chose shape A, the next step, step number two, is to match corresponding sides. Corresponding sides. Okay. So then, once I have shape A, I would get my corresponding sides on the bottom. You will end up with one fraction, say it's this fraction here, where you know the number on top and you know the number on the bottom. When that happens, we call that our keystone fraction. It's the key that unlocks all the other fractions. So then you can set up your proportions. These two fractions can be equal. These two fractions can be equal. These two fractions can be equal. They all equal the keystone fraction. So you'll get two fractions being equal, and then you solve for x. So step 3, solve for x. Okay. Now, we can't do that unless we know they're similar. And that's what we're looking at today. Are these shapes similar? Okay, are they similar? So when you're looking for similarity, you're looking for two things. In order to be similar, you need same angles and you need both and same ratios. Okay, so you definitely need both, the same angles and the same ratios. So let's look at these two shapes down here. Okay, with these two shapes down here, let's compare the shapes and see what the ratios are. We're going to look at the ratios first. So for the ratios, which shape do you want on the top of the fraction? The left or the right? Left, okay? So we're going to leave it up to Sam to choose left on top, right on the bottom. So if that was the case, from the left shape, I would have side 6 on top. Now 6 is in between the dot V. Which side matches up with the dot V? Which angle rather? E. They're the same markings. Okay. Then down below I have no marking, U. Which angle matches up with U? D. No marking. And it looks like it's 90 degrees. So because they have the same angles, which side matches up with 6? Good. So you look at the angles to help you look. Now you can go to your calculator, and what's 6 divided by 3? 2. Okay. Now you can also do the other ratio. So we got to check both, not just one, but all of them. So we're going to use the left shape dimension of 5. Which side matches up with 5? Looking at the sides. 2.5. That's a tougher one. We'll go to our calculator and divide them. 5 divided by 2.5 equals 2. Okay. Now, what if you weren't Sam? What if you're Zayden? Zayden wants to do things differently because he doesn't like Sam very much. Don't blame him. I know, just making stuff. So then you'd flip the fraction. So Zayden would want the right on top and the left on the bottom because he's a little bit different. And so 3 divided by 6 is 1/2. But on a calculator, it'll be 3 divided by 6. It represents the fraction as a decimal. So I'll write down 0.5. Okay. And I'll do that for my other fraction as well. 2.5 over 5. I go to my calculator, I divide them, beep, 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 and voila, 0.5 as well. Okay. So what we can say is that they have the same ratios. Now, this can also work a different way as well. You can also see the ratios of the same shape. So 3 divided by 2.5. So now I'm using the ratios here of the same shape. If I go 3 divided by 2.5, I get 1.2. Does it work for the other shape? What is 6 divided by 5? It's also 1.2. So you can check your ratios any which way you want, as long as the corresponding sides are paired together. Right? You got to match up the sides properly. Now, most would say, hey, ratios are the same, the shapes are similar, but they aren't. Let's take a closer look at the angles. Remember, it's not just one fact. Both facts need to be true. We haven't talked about the angles. So if I look at the angles, this angle and this angle are the same. This angle and this angle are the same. And the only other thing we know for sure is that these two angles are the same. But because there's two unknowns, you could have this shape open up differently. These shapes could be spread apart differently. We don't know for sure. So because we don't have the same angles, there's not the same angles, then we can say they are not similar. Now, I guess proper English speaking, we would do this differently, wouldn't we? Let's just say we were not similar. Sorry for this. Not similar because B/C, not the same angles. So you need an answer and a reason. Not similar, not same angles. Okay. Question, Jenna? You sure? Positive? Perfect. Put your phone away. Okay. Looking at the next shape then. Okay. So we got the same ratios, but they're not similar to the same angles. Now, we're going to see if these two shapes are similar. Because they're parallelograms, these angles here would be the same as these angles here. Okay. As well, these angles here would have to be the same as these angles here in order to be parallel. So then we can look at ratios. Okay. So then we can look at ratios. So looking at ratios, we have, which one do you want on top? Left or the right? Left. So left on top, right on the bottom. So the left would be 8 over a number and 12 over a number. What matches up with the 8? And what matches up with the 12? Okay, go ahead, find the ratios. Use your calculator. I get 1.3 repeating for the top one. What about the bottom one? 12 divided by 8, I get 1.5. So, are these shapes similar? Okay, so that's the first part. Not similar. Why? Angles do. Yeah, because the ratios aren't equal. No, they're not supposed to be the same. Similar shapes don't have the same numbers. Like these numbers represent the ratio, so we want to use that word ratio, Sam. Okay, because ratios are not the same. Okay, so those are the two things you got to check out. For these questions, you got to check out the ratios and the angles. The ratios of the sides and the angles. Okay. Yeah.
Even though the angles aren't the same, do you still need to do like find the ratios?
No, if you see the angles aren't the same, then you don't have to. But it's good practice, though, right? The trick with that, though, Sam, is when we go to triangles, you only need one of them to be the same. So I kind of do hesitate to say yes to that. Okay. I just want to go over homework question number 3 real quick. Homework question number 3. So we've covered a question like this already. So here's your picture, 24 by 36. Okay. Then what happens is you put a frame around it. So here's the 24 by 36, and you put a 4-inch frame on the outside. So this is still 24, but now you have 4 inches here, and you have 4 inches here on both sides. So how long is the outside red line on the bottom? What's this size right here?
32.
Yeah, it's 24 plus 4 plus 4, 32. Okay, so that's the tricky part there, 32. And what about on the other side? It's the same idea. This is 36, but then you have plus 4 and plus 4. So how big is that side? Nope, 44. Yeah. Okay. So that's a tough question there. And then for the question number 3, the answer key used the ratios of the same shapes. Okay, so they went 44 over 32 and 36 over 24 for their ratios. So just to give you a heads up. I don't really like that much, personally, because then it kind of messes up your fractions with the proportions, but it is a way of doing it. Okay. Questions, comments, or concerns? How many questions do you have to do today? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. And quiz 2 must be done. Once done quiz 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, guess where you get to go?